Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of ReTFuss, where I take old stories I've narrated and update into modern audio standards. This particular story is called Billy Bob Space Trucker, and is part of a series. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 12. President Cross was sitting in a small conference room in the dodecahedron with several other dignitaries and military personnel as he began to lay out what they knew regarding the situation. Butch Cross had traded out his official flag cloak and eagle standard from his press conference with the more casual suit that he'd ripped his arms off himself. He leaned forward, hands clasped in front of him, as he listened to the presentation. The situation had been moving ahead over the past day, as the first time since the Unification Crusade, America was thinking about accepting an alliance with a foreign power. So, this species is known as the Libertonians, which is a good name on its own. Looks like space eagles. The intel officer nodded. That is correct, sir. As you can see from the pictures here, they do have forearms and some sort of flexible insect wing-like webbing between them to assist in flying. But overall, they do look like space eagles. There was murmurs of approval from around the table. And their current president is named Abe, as in Abraham, like Abraham Lincoln. The intel officer nodded once more. That is correct, sir. However, his last name is Sharptalon. Abraham Sharptalon. President Butch Crusher Cross repeated the name with a nod as he looked around the table. I think we could form an alliance with an Abraham Sharptalon. Do they have videos of him hunting or something, to help the citizens get excited about the first batch of awesome Xenos that we've met and all that? No, sir, but I'll pass on word. The thing is, they're in a bit of a tricky diplomatic situation. Cross waved a hand dismissively. They're tall, eagle-loving space eagles. I don't give a crap about the rest of the galaxy hates them. We're going to befriend them. That's just it, sir. The rest of the galaxy does sort of hate them. And why is that? They started some war around the formation of the galactic government a few centuries back. I think, they wanted more freedom in policy decisions. I think, it's hard to find information since most of the galaxy thinks that we're a subspecies of the UHG. Cross waved a hand, and that once more. Feck it, sounds like my kind of Xenos. For once, I don't see why we shouldn't forge ahead with this. Look, Mr. President, you don't have the authority to do that all on your own. I say we make them come here and live a week in Australia to test their mettle. Cross rolled his eyes at Governor Dundee. Ned, you recommend that with all Xenos we talk about. The gravity alone would crush most of them. Look, just because the UHG didn't want your land of nopes, we decided to take you in doesn't mean Australia gets special treatment. You're still a state. Governor Dundee was going to be Cross's primary opponent in the next election. His croc wrestling impressed voters, but Cross was confident that he could take him in a debate-mania cage match. The intel officer looked between the two for a moment before coughing softly. There's also the matter of our official embassy exchange and ceremony. Cross groaned at that. No! The UHG ceremonies are bad enough. What's this one about? If I understand correctly, you trade cans of alcohol, shotgun them, and then smash them to your forehead. Cross jumped to his feet, arms raised in the air. The alliance between America and the Libertonians waits for no one. Actually it does. What? The president glared at the intel officer. They insist that we wait until the success of our American escort and their diplomat on a mission. Who the feck is making the president of the United States of America wait on him? That would be Billy Bob, Space Trucker. Billy Bob had started to calm down as the biogel seemed to settle within his system, and they'd managed to convince him to come back to the medbay for a quick exam. He was still tearing off chunks of steak with his teeth and eating them. Emily had tried some and was startled at the incredible flavor of the meat. A valuable trade commodity should their people begin trade. But Goldsmith was more interested in Billy Bob's anatomy. This is incredible. Your species is so dense the nanites have enough materials to continually operate. Their variable programming seems to have toned down their work, but they'll last in your system far longer than most organisms. All that water in your cells is astounding. Billy Bob just nodded and chewed the Kobe beef. Yep. What was in the glue that you used on yourself anyway? It must have been potent to keep such moist cells stuck together. Billy Bob shrugged. Horse hooves? No, I think that's Elmer's glue and Jello. Man, when I was a kid, I loved letting extra Elmer's glue dry on my fingers to peel it off, he chuckled. Ah, the old times. Goldsmith looked to Emily, who shrugged. The space goblin continued then. Well, either way, I'll give you another 2 liters of biogel just in case. But Billy Bob, don't take any more unless you'll seriously need to. Billy Bob nodded at that. Hey, how come we've never heard of this before? This biogel seems super useful. It's illegal outside the galactic military, but we, space goblins, don't really follow the law. Billy Bob grinned at that. Sounds good. Hopping off the exam table, he collected the metal containers with more biogel and followed Emily out into the station, stopping near the exit of the medbay to collect his weapon. Billy Bob, I must say that you were incredible earlier. The Orcs are known for being fierce warriors, and you defeated them easily. Billy Bob shrugged it off with a smile. Just good American fighting skills, I guess, he said as they began to walk out the station. The meat supply store was fixing their window, and Billy Bob waved at the cook, who was reading up on the PDF Billy Bob had sent over. Kill it and grill it. He was passing by what looked like some sort of lounge with various Xenos sitting around dressed in clothes. Sort of looked like lingerie, maybe. But on Xenos, so it sort of confused him. He'd never seen a place like this. Emily, what is this place? Oh, it's a companionship and philosophy center. What? Lonely people or just anyone who needed some companionship come by and rent time with the employee inside. They might couple or just talk in private rooms within the establishment. Like, space hookers. Is this space brothel? My translator isn't quite sure that the terms match, but why did you want to couple with someone? Billy Bob froze, his world going slightly dark. Suddenly, he wasn't on the station anymore. He was back in high school, freshman biology. Mrs. Munchausen's class. The class was crying and screaming as she slapped the hollow projector with her yardstick. Pay attention, class. Until the projector registers everyone's eye focus, I will not continue. Which means that you will be here all day until we get it out of the way. They were looking at a horrific image, projected fully before them with the label Space Gonorrhea. Finally, everyone looked back at the projector as she clicked for the next slide. This is Space Chlamydia. Everyone screamed again. Space herpes, more screams. Space syphilis. A few kids had to run to the trash cans as they puked. Mrs. Munchausen's evil sneer plastered on her face as she hit the button again. We don't even have a name for this one yet. Most people ran out of the room, including Billy Bob. Later on, he'd heard it was all made up, but there was no fecking way that he was taking any chances. No, I'm good. Let's get back to the ship. Emily looked a little confused as he began to push her ahead of him to keep them moving right on by. Once they were out of the main station and walking back to their ship, he smiled at the sight of a metal container waiting near his airlock. The space goblins had been nice enough to agree to give him a supply of human food to take with him, and had given him the location of several other black market stations where he'd be welcome. Hey, cool. More steaks and stuff. Galactic trade is good stuff. He picked open the airlock before realizing something. Oh shit, Mittens is probably starving. When he opened the inner airlock, though, he was confused as he looked around at the mess. The fuck? Mittens was curled up on the bed. There were empty cat food cans lying around, and one of those Bork rifles on the floor. Bork blood was smeared on the ground and on the door into the bathroom. Stepping up, he opened the bathroom and heard a cry of terror as he found a Bork with a bleeding face curled up around the space toilet. Please don't kill me. I'm sorry. I'll do whatever you want. The fuck are you doing in there? I wait in here until your pet calls for food. I then quickly open a can for him and hide again. He spared my life in exchange for my ability to open those cans. Mittens looked up from the bed as a Bork cried out and hunkered down closer to the toilet. Please, my life is forfeit to you. I'll be your lifelong servant. Sorry, pal, not a fan of slaves. He picked up the Bork's weapon, handing it to him as the Bork blinked, looking confused and afraid. Billy Bob nodded and pushed the weapon at him. The Bork finally took it, but didn't get up. Here, instead, I want you to get back on the station and get a job as a guard. You protect this station. It's your new home. You live to guard it for me, okay, pal?
Yes, thank you. You do me a great honor. I will not forget.
Here, hold on. He set things down, putting a glass from the cupboard and pouring some biogel into it. He handed it to the Borg, who looked at it and then slowly drank the contents, seeming to struggle with the last of it, even if it was only about 2 big American-sized shots of liquid. He shakily got to his feet and slowly edged out of the bathroom, trying to stay as far away from Mittens as he could in the small cabin. Once he was past the cat, he ran to the airlock.
I swear I'll protect the station with my life,
he called out as he ran out. Billy Bob just chuckled and gave Mittens a pat. The cat purred and nuzzled his hand. What a terror you are, buddy. Who knew? That done, he and Emily cleaned up, loaded up the supplies they'd been given, and Billy Bob got his Longhorn moving back towards the space lane. He'd need to drive straight on in his 99 to deliver the cargo. Then it was off to the galactic capital. Once he was back into FTL lane, he looked over at Emily. Hey, Emily, I bet you didn't hear that.
Hear what?
She'd removed her hood and her mask, which is what he'd been waiting for. We call it silent, but deadly. She frowned at him as she looked at him.
What are you talking about?
He just grinned wide until her eyes opened in shock. Oh, by the vengeful God.
Billy Bob, that's disgusting.
She got up, rushing to the bathroom as he chuckled. Turning his music on, he settled in for the drive. So ends another chapter in the adventures of Billy Bob, Space Trucker. I'd quickly like to thank our T5 Patreon and channel members, Casper Arnholtz, Jon Creighton, 050, Dragzoon W.R.E, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.